My ex harassed me for months. Now my friends are siding with her by banning my +1 at their wedding on my own property. I refused, and now the wedding is off. So here's the situation. Last summer, I bought my grandparents' house. This house was the hangout spot for my friends and I throughout our childhood, and this includes my friend Dave. The house has a sizable amount of land, which includes a lake and a gazebo. I was supposed to buy the house with my now ex-girlfriend Leslie, but going through the process of getting approved to buy, I find out that she has massive amounts of credit card debt and personal debt that she hid from me throughout our 4 years together. So I decided to break up as a result. That was about 6 months ago. Now, I met Leslie because of Dave's long-term girlfriend, Kim, and she is Leslie's cousin. Dave and Kim are engaged and set to get married in April. When I was buying the house, they asked me if they could have the ceremony at the gazebo, which I agreed to do. Then in December, I started dating again, and Leslie has not taken this well at all. She thinks we were going to get back together and has tried multiple times to make that happen. I have told her, though, in no uncertain terms, that isn't happening. Dave and Kim have asked me not to bring a +1 to the wedding for Leslie's sake, and I have told them that this request is ridiculous. Edit. So, I have seen a few things brought up a number of times in the comment section, so I will quickly address them here. 1. I am fully aware of the liability issues, which is why I purchased and they reimbursed me for a special event insurance policy, which will provide 100% coverage for any damages, claims, injuries, etc. to any of the property or persons up to $2 million. It is one of the first things we did after I agreed to have the event in my home. 2. The wedding will have a maximum, if everyone comes, of 75 guests, 5 catering staff, and 5 security staff. The security is because this is an open area that anyone walking past can access. The house has hosted events twice this size, and logistically it has been fine. On the property, there are 2 cottages, one with the bathroom and the other with 2 bathrooms. The only portion of my house that will not be locked during the wedding is the finished basement. The basement has 2 bathrooms. 3. Every person who is single, i.e. not in an established relationship, received an invitation with a +1, including me and Leslie. This talk came after I sent in my return card and indicated I was bringing a +1. Now, they are saying they do not want me to have the +1 because Leslie blew up about it, and they are afraid of a blow-up at the wedding. And finally, 4, Leslie indicated she intends to bring someone on her card. I do not know if she will actually bring someone, though. Then in the comments section, one user said, OP, pull an Uno reverse card. Tell them Leslie isn't allowed on your property and watch their heads explode. So, the petty part of me did absolutely consider saying, well, Leslie cannot come to my house or on my land, so it shouldn't be a problem. Then user 2 commented and said, OP, out of curiosity, are either you and or Leslie in the wedding party? Leslie is in the wedding party. Dave is the youngest of 5 boys, so all of his groomsmen are his brothers. Then user 3 commented and said, OP, this one is really tough. I'm going with everyone sucks here, although it was more or less a toss-up with that and not the a-hole. Now listen, I get it. It's your house and you're doing them a favor. But is bringing a date when you've been dating again for 2 months really a hill you want your friendship to die on? She isn't just your ex, she is the bride's family. Can't you go at it alone for this one day? Or bring a friend instead of a romantic interest so you aren't intentionally causing drama at your friend's wedding? And if you take the venue out of it, would you expect to bring a date? And if the answer is no, did you tell them when you said you could use the house that there was such a big string attached? Their wedding is in April. Telling them to find somewhere else at this point is a huge, most likely friendship-ending thing. So, I do not consider this a big string attached. All of our single friends have a +1. Leslie has a +1. I am literally the only person who is not in an established couple who they do not want to have a +1. I would expect to be treated like every other guest. And I know Leslie is Kim's family, but David and I have been family to each other. I have known Dave since I was 3 years old. We grew up together. This makes it feel like we are not as close as I previously thought. And if I knew they would even consider treating me like a stranger, which is what this feels like, I absolutely would have never agreed to let them use my land for the wedding. Then OP replied to a downvoted commenter and said, for the last 6 months, my life, because of Leslie, has been drama. Every person who will be at the wedding is in some way or form connected to this drama. The woman I am dating is not. I want someone who is disconnected from this drama and who I do not feel like I have to walk on eggshells around. My peace also matters. All I am asking for them is to tell Leslie, hey, just act like an adult for 4 hours. But instead, they rather have me be uncomfortable than have that talk with her, when I am doing what I can to help them with this wedding. Then OP elaborates on why there's a need for security and said, "Security is to keep people out. This is an open area. The wedding is outside. I have acres of land and it is largely unfenced, including this section. Any stranger could easily walk up onto this event." Then user 4 commented and said, "One thing, OP, you are not entitled to Leslie's financial information as a boyfriend, even a long-term boyfriend. She was not hiding it from you. It was none of your business. It became your business when merging finances became a likelihood." I am entitled to not being told lies. In conversations about finances, she misrepresented her financial status. She's the one who initiated our conversations about money 6 months into the relationship and then hid information for years about her financial situation. She demanded to know about my income, debt, and savings. I provided it because I thought we were planning a future together. I asked for the same information, and she described her credit card debt as very little. Sorry, but $50,000 of credit card debt is not very little. If her view was, you don't have a right to know, then okay. But that was not her view at all. So yeah, she hid it from me. Then user 5 commented and said, "OP, how much debt was she in aside from the $50K? So, about $30K in student loans, and she owes about $20K on car. We could pay off the credit card debt in probably about 3 years' time. My issue is her lying about it. I lost my trust in her." Then user 6 commented and said, 75 guests is 74 plus, so not small. Why they are thinking of having someone at the wedding who they say is going to go nuts at the homeowner is beyond me. I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think Dave has ever been your friend. I think he's always been a friend to the family's money. You do say as a child he used to hang out at your grandparents' house. So, this whole thing is making me reassess our relationship. There are people who left our friend group over the years, citing Dave's selfishness as a part of the reason. And then finally, OP replied to a downvoted comment telling him to be the bigger person and said, "As my therapist says, being the bigger person does not mean allowing yourself to be stepped on. It means loving people when they do not deserve it. And love rarely looks like capitulation." Update: 1 week later. So, I met with Dave this morning. We talked for almost 2 hours about everything. I laid it out that I thought he was at best a crappy friend. I went through our long history of various things over the years that has me questioning our friendship. That was the bulk of our conversation. We then turned to the breakup with Leslie and the crap show of the last 6 months. Throughout the past half year, despite Leslie's craziness, I have bent over backwards to try and accommodate her feelings. She has shown up to my house in the middle of the night. I did not go for a restraining order. When I go out, I do not go to places I know that her and her family like to go. She's implied to her family and mutual friends at various times that I cheated and/or I took advantage of her financially, neither of which is at all true. I have held my tongue to not embarrass her about these things in front of her friends and family. Dave's known all that, and yet is demanding, once again, that I put Leslie's feelings before my own. And I said, you and everyone need to stop coddling her like she is an effing child. Dave concedes that Leslie has been crazy and ridiculous since the breakup, but he says to me, she feels that she did not get the closure she needed after the relationship. She wants to have an evening where she can talk to you and get that closure. And he also told me that Leslie has been very vigilant about paying off her debt and paid off almost $10,000 of the credit card debt. She wants to talk to me about her progress, to see if that might cause me to change my mind. It will not, though. And then I asked him, so, do you expect me to go to the wedding and talk to her? Because I have her blocked everywhere, and date or not, I do not plan to say a single mumbling word to her. And then he said to me, I fully expect she would lose it if y'all did not talk at the wedding. And I told him, if that's the case, then for the good of my property, I can't have Leslie come. If she is so unstable that I need to be coerced into a conversation with her, she is too unsafe to be a guest, in any capacity in my home. So I have told him, based on what he has told me, Leslie cannot come to my house or be on my land. I am willing to still have the wedding at my place, but I cannot trust Leslie won't do something given what you are telling me. And then Dave lost it at this point, and he said, F you and your crap, I don't need it. So I said then, the wedding is off. And he left. And so, that is the state of things. Then, in the comments section, OP replied to a now deleted comment and said, my peace of mind, it matters. And I offered a solution that keeps the peace, while also not exposing me to the chaos that is Leslie. Leslie does not come to the wedding. I would have been willing to let them have it at my place then. I would be willing to not come to the wedding myself to make it fair. But meeting/speaking with Leslie is not keeping the peace. It disrupts my peace of mind. Then one user commented and said, OP, you handled this awfully. You don't start a heart-to-heart about your ex-girlfriend by laying out every grievance you've ever had in your relationship with Dave. Where do you expect him to be mentally/emotionally when you even start the conversation about your ex? No wonder he blew up at the end. He felt attacked. Okay, so this was not a heart-to-heart about my ex. This was a heart-to-heart with Dave about our relationship, his and mine. We have talked about Leslie, and I was done with those discussions months ago. I made that clear when setting it up, because I understand Leslie's position. I understand Kim's position, but I do not understand Dave's position. He knew all the crap I was going through and was still acting that way. And then finally, user 2 commented and said, I think wealth attracts a-holes, and I think OP is probably a bit sheltered cognitively that his wealth has always given him power over people's behavior to a certain extent. And I think a large part of the shock for OP here is that the friend is walking away from that dynamic. Okay, so I have no idea why you think that I grew up wealthy and sheltered. I did not. You notice I did not mention my parents in the post. That is because my parents were too broke to care for me, as determined by the state. My grandparents had enough where I could grow up middle class, meaning no worries about my basic necessities, clothing, food, and shelter, but anything beyond those was on me. College was paid for by scholarships and work-study jobs. Grad school was paid for by my employer. I now make relatively good money. And that money stretches quite far because I live in a fairly low-cost rural community and I have no kids. If I lived where my job's office is located, I would be living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. And Dave and I's dynamic historically has been me going along with whatever he wants, often to my detriment. I think that is why he came to me rather than even attempt to get Leslie to behave. My shock is that I thought he legitimately cared about my feelings and well-being, but this experience makes it clear that he does not. So, to give my own narrator's thoughts and opinions on the matter, I don't feel like OP is the a-hole in the back half here. I think after the first part of the story, like that one commenter said, like, is that really a hill you want your friendship to die on? And then also giving them a last-minute notification to say, hey, you can't have the wedding here would have been an a-hole move. But with all the information we have here, I don't blame OP at all. It seems like Dave is just not considerate about OP's feelings, and OP has been enduring Leslie hell for 6 months now. That is 6 months too many. And by the way, I knew a girl named Leslie once, and I asked her out on a date, and she said no. And that's the end of the story. I didn't go crazy or anything because I'm not insane and I didn't torture her for 6 months. But as always, I encourage comments and discussion. If you guys see OP in a different light, then feel free to share it. But I just feel like Dave isn't very considerate about OP. And, OP even used the logic against him. He's like, hey, if this crazy person is going to be on my property, then they probably shouldn't be on my property potentially destroying it, right? Right, Dave? Dave, what are you doing? Dave, put the gun down. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day, and bye-bye.